Back when, what were the kind of personas that you were thinking about that you think, were impactful or influential on you that took you kind of like into where you found yourself a few years later, maybe in your teen years? What were you thinking like back when, like, I want to be this guy? And then where does it take you? Community and culture.
That's a very loaded question.
Yeah. Sounds like a good
talking to mom.
There's a starting point.
It's a very loaded question. I mean, especially from the generation that we've grown up.
Yeah.
Considering I've grown up with your younger brother.
Yeah.
There's we're in a generation where we've seen some of the best sports athletes in our time. Your Michael Jordans, your Troy Aikmans, your Cristiano Ronaldos.
Right.
When it comes to certain business figures out there, we've seen your Bill Gates and your Howard Dells, come about and whatnot, and then we also come from a generation where, let's say from the 80s, where you had a lot of huge epidemics, like, your crack epidemic, you had a recession, being born at the end of that cusp and going into another generation, we've seen everything. We've seen the internet come about, so there's not just people, there's also things that we can also, that, I've been able to look up to, or my generation that we've been able to look up to.
Right.
I would say, the stars for me that I probably looked up to in the beginning, let's say preteen and teens are, again, your Michael Jordans. But then, when you see certain things or grown up in certain environments, especially from the environments that I've grown up in, you then start to, idolize things that from your environment. So, when you see, a movie from, let's say, Brian De Palma, your Tony Montana, your Scarfaces, your Goodfellas,
right.
Those are things that, stick to you. Also, even the music that the type of music that you hear. So, I've listened to your Biggie Smalls, your Tupacs, your Nas's, and, the common denominator between all those,
right.
Artists is that they're telling a certain story. And that common story is, it's coming from the street.
Right.
When you hear things like that from people that you already idolize, it already automatically makes you want to be a part of that story in some shape, way, or form. When someone like a Biggie Smalls passed away, or a Tupac passed away, they were at the top of their game. They had the top chart hits.
Okay.
The type of music or the type of things that they're putting out there, it's real. It's not like the music that you're hearing today where, they're glorifying diamonds in your teeth and, women and, that's not really what I resonate to. I like to hear a story. I like to hear what people's, I can say, experiences that they've gone through to get to where they are today. Though they've passed away, they're still remembered.
What do you mean? Like, do you think it's like the rough and tough, like we came from the wherever, the ghetto or the gutter, and look where we are now?
Exactly.
Right? Is that what you...
I would say that's probably the thing that resonates to me the most, because they came from nothing.
Right.
They took something, turned it into something, tangible, and the rest is just
And the
history.
world is all against you.
Exactly. Did
you feel like the world was against you?
I've always felt like the world, in some shape, way, or form, has always been against me. But at the same time, I think, when I look back at everything I've put myself through, and I want to put that out there. I've put myself through those things. No one's put me in those positions.
What made you feel like that the world was against you?
Well, again, it's, I guess, a certain lifestyle that I used to live, it's choices or decisions that I would, make for myself. They're not in line, with, people of the norm, let's just say.
What do you mean norm? What does that mean?
So I guess what I mean for norm is, I guess the norm of people that, I've seen out there, they go to school,
right.
They try to get a good education,
right.
They want to try to land a good first job and, progress. And then eventually at some point, build a family with your white picket fence, a dog, children,
right.
sort of thing, and then retire.
And so you didn't see yourself following that same trajectory from an early age? Like you're like, education's not jiving with me like it is for others, or how was that?
Yes and no.
Right.
Again, for the choices that I've made for myself, again, I was always resonated to, some glorification of, a street hustle or something that these artists always talk about, right? That I mentioned before. I always wanted to, try to work smart and not hard.
Okay. Did you ever feel when you're thinking about this that those who are following the norm are a bunch of suckers? Like they're just gonna go and they're just gonna live out this average-looking life. And what was it like? What was that show, Suits, or that guy Harvey Specter? He goes, life is this. I want this, or he says something like that. And it's like this, right? It's like, I want more. And all of these people are they're suckers. They're just taking this path, and I don't want that. Or was it the other way around, that you wanted it and just somebody was sending you some message going, you don't belong here? Which one, or was it any of those?
You know what? It's a little combination of everything.
Okay.
I looked at people that work so hard to try to get to where they want.
Right.
And, they're taking so long to get to that point. Whereas, for someone, like me, I would look at what they're doing and I'd be like, okay, what's the best way to cut that line? Because I can tell you right now, I know if I go to the club, I'm not waiting in line like the rest of the suckers. I'm going to make sure I know someone at the door, I know someone inside, and I've got my booth, my VIP booth with my bottles waiting for me.
Right.
So, that's the way I always looked at life, just where can I find a shortcut and get in without having to make any sort of disruption. And if I do make a disruption, I want to make sure it's known that, I'm the only one that can make this sort of disruption. You can't do it. Sort of thing.
Well, that's the, the Goodfellas that we used to watch. I used to watch this movie like every week, twice a week. And the message there is like, look at all these average people getting paid hourly. They're suckers. And I'm not going to end up like that. But that is exactly what we're thinking. We watch a movie and we're like, we start emulating characters in these movies that we choose to watch.
Absolutely.
Right? We could have gone and watched something else. But that's what we watched, and then we want more of it. And so so you start finding yourself making conscious decisions, saying, yeah, I wonder what that's going to look and feel like. And then you start, do you wait for an invitation for something like that, or do you seek it?
If anything, you know what, I couldn't wait. I'm not the type of person that could wait for
okay.
anything, But,
so you went looking for it.
Exactly. I went looking for it. I guess you can say one of my biggest issues for myself personally is always having that feeling of instant gratification, right?
Okay.
I guess you could say in my earlier years it carried me, but then at some point, coming into my later years now, it's been a deficit, so to say, But going back to what you were saying, I was always seeking it. I was always seeking, something bigger and better, wanting more, not getting that feeling that I'm satisfied.
But not having to wait in line for it.
And not having to wait in line for it, exactly.
Not being a sucker like
But
everybody else.
What made you
Exactly.
do like university at the same time as you were doing other things though? Because that's like two different paths.
To be
that
honest with you,
contradict each other.
To be quite frank with you, university was probably one of the best business setups I could possibly think of with that sort of lifestyle. Think about it. I purposely chose to go to university or school, post education, outside of town. Somewhere where I'm not known, somewhere where I'm not going to attract any sort of attention. When you're just living on campus or some form of a student housing or dorm, one of the first things I would always try to do is try to see who's at the top of their game, who's a part of the A crowd, who are the people I need to. It's kind of like when you're making a business plan. You're always researching your competition or the competitors out there,
Where your market is.
where your market is, and then you try to offer something that nobody else has, whether that's through a product or through a service. I was able to do both, fortunately for me.
Calling yourself a service provider.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. All right.
Again, not something that I'm proud of.
Sure.
But I will say
But
this,
that,
though.
right. That's how you see it when you're at that point.
Exactly. But I can definitely say this, though. And I think I've said this before. I regret a lot of the things that I've done in my past. But at the same time, I don't, because it's made me who I am today. For example,
Was that also a beard for you going to school, like from a family perspective as well?
pretty much. You took a thought right out of my head. It was just more so, to be honest, I went to get my degree just to basically shut my mom up. So she's not constantly in my ear, Mom, if you're watching this, sorry, I love you, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
And
he listened. He heard you, by the way, right?
Yeah. Your thoughts exactly. It was more so like a beard, more so like like an ugly veil, or not an ugly veil. Sorry,
a very helpful veil.
A very helpful veil to cover an ugly, inside. At the time, I didn't see it as being ugly. But when I look back at it now, there are a lot of ugly things about it, But at the same time, again, as I said, it's I don't regret it because it's made me who I am today. For example, even in my career, I'm in supply chain and logistics. I've been doing this for over 15 years. I was doing it while I was doing other things. It's just only in the last 5 to 8 years that I've actually taken my career more seriously. And actually applying myself, doing what I actually am, wanting to set out to do, rather than be distracted from the noise and stuff like that from my past, right? So it's helped me in a lot of ways,
But when you're going through it and you're at that moment there, so you're in university, you're providing a product and a service, okay? You're obviously also successful at it, so you're experiencing growth. Did you see it as growth? Did you see it as, hey, I'm getting better at my trade. I'm moving up. I'm getting ahead of that line. Like, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated?
To be honest with you, the end all be all of it, what kept me going in that is, aside from getting what I want, when I want, whenever I want, and however I want, that's one thing. It's, there's also a glitz and glamour sort of factor to it. When you are making such an abundant amount of money, providing a service and product, knowing that I can go walk into any store or walk into any restaurant or walk into any establishment, whatever that establishment is, and getting what I want, no matter what the cost is, that's what kept me going, Again, I don't have to wait for anything. I don't have to be that sucker that's working a 9 to 5. I mean, the one thing that my parents always taught me was, to be self-sufficient for yourself, even for the lifestyle that I lived, I didn't really have to live that lifestyle. That's just a choice I made. I come from a good home.
Yeah.
Good home in a sense where, my family's still till this day is intact.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
But again,
organized chaos.
Organized chaos. Exactly. Perfectly put. They always, I come from a well-to-do family, but, the one thing I can definitely hold dearly that I appreciate from my family till today is, don't rely on anybody else for where you want to be, whether it's financially, support, like, you know what I mean? That's one thing I appreciate, something that my mom and dad instilled into me is never, don't be a chump to somebody else. Don't be tied to somebody else that way. Always provide for yourself, provide for your family, at whatever cost.
So
I think I took that last statement a bit too
far. Well, you took your interpretation of it, right? There was something that you accessed, and there was chemistry, so you kept going with it. You were seeking it out from some level, so you also feel like you're successful, right? You're moving along, because some people do it and they're not successful.
No, they're not. It's there's no really gray area when you live that lifestyle. You're either big in it or you're just a minnow.
Right.
I didn't want to be, in that gray area. I wanted to take it. I wanted to be big. I wanted to be the Tupac. I wanted to be the Biggie Smalls of what I do,
Did you ever feel that you got there?
I felt that I got there, but again, I was never satisfied. Because
I keep thinking fulfillment, like the fulfillment. You never achieve fulfillment, or
exactly. And no matter, there was a time where I'd walk into my place where I was living at that time, and I'd look at everything around. I'm just like, this is just not enough. Like, I want more. I want a bigger place. You know what I mean? Like, you're always wanting more, and it's just never enough.
But don't you think, like, I just find this so interesting because everyone kind of goes through this relationship with money and stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's just stuff.
Exactly.
You either
But at
have
the time,
crappy stuff or you have really nice stuff, or
But at the moment,
it's
you're not-
just stuff.
But at the moment, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about that. All you're thinking about is, when is the next drop on this Gucci sweater going to be coming out?
Right.
Or when are the next Jordans coming out? And not just the regular common pair,
Yeah.
like the rare pair that's
Yeah.
selling for $1,000, as opposed to the $150 pair that you would normally buy from a Foot Locker.
Right.
Right. It's just never enough. You know, when you're living that lifestyle, you know, the higher the dollar amount is, you automatically tend to think it's bigger, better, faster.
Did you ever feel like a celebrity walking around in certain places? Because I can
Absolutely.
sometimes make you feel like you've got value, and you are valuable. Do you ever
Absolutely.
get that feeling?
Absolutely.
You walk in and everyone's like, oh, look, and you can see eyes looking at you thinking, oh, I know, they're talking about me now. And they know I'm here, I'm in the room. Do you ever feel that way?
Absolutely. I mean,
And there's
it's
this
a great
like,
feeling,
right?
knowing that.
So then that feels pretty good.
Knowing that people are looking at you, knowing people are talking about you. You know, it's funny. One of my favorite artists that I still listen to this day, you know, from NWA, okay, Eazy-E. You know, he said something very famous, you know, and he said, all publicity is good publicity. So the fact that somebody's talking about you, you know, the fact that I could impact somebody in their daily life and affect them,
Right.
makes me feel
Gave you
great.
value,
Gave me some form of value, right? But then at some point, it's just like,
Well, it's just that ego game,
Yeah,
right? It
exactly.
just
It's an ego.
it never gets nurtured or
But come on,
or filled up.
Yeah, but
Sorry,
at that
it
point,
always
we
get-
don't say to ourselves, "That's
Yeah.
my ego talking."
No,
that's
but
not
it's
what
in
we say.
hindsight.
I
In
never said
hindsight.
that. It's
No,
like,
not
yeah,
at
I'm
all.
worth something. I am
Yeah.
like the center of the
I'm
attention
somebody.
here.
I'm somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now, you know, when I walk around places, you know, people that know me from just that lifestyle versus the me who I am today, you know, I don't like the way I'm remembered right now. You know,
Right.
and now it's like I walk into a room and people that, let's say, know me from my past in some shape, way, or form, they're scared of me. I'm feared. I'm not perceived in a good light. They automatically judge, you know, because, you know, they haven't seen me in so long. They don't know what I've been through. They don't, you know, understand or see the progress that I've, you know, taken on for myself individually as a person, as a human being, right? So, you know, yeah, wanting to be remembered is one thing, but wanting to be remembered for something
For
positive,
what? Yeah.
for what is a whole different ball game, you know. And unfortunately, growing up, you know, especially for, you know, people, or let's say males in my generation, you know, they don't, you know, tend to realize that or see that, right? And when they do realize it, sometimes it's too late. You know, I think fortunately for me, I would at least hope, you know, I may be late to the show, but, you know, I'm at the show right now. I'm there. You know, I'm a part of the show. You know, and it's, though I'm late, I feel like it's, you know, I've caught myself in time to
Better late
get-
than never.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So there's a saying, one of my favorites, that says, "What you own owns you."
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
At some point in time, did it ever feel like you went from a want to now I need to keep this up?
Yes, it did, and I'll tell you how it owned me.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, when you're in that lifestyle, when you're in that certain lifestyle, you know, you go through certain things. You know, you have run-ins with authorities and stuff like that. You would tend to think that most people that, you know, encounter that, they would straighten up. You know, unfortunately for me, I didn't look at it that way. Every time I would get, let's say, booked,
Right.
you know, as I'm coming out, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I got caught this way. I'm going to continue to do this. I got to analyze how I got caught and how am I going to get out of that to keep being able to go forward. But as you get older, every time you have, you know, every time I would have a downfall, you know, and I would say to myself, okay, you know what? I'm going to try to live a straight life. I'm going to actually, you know, focus on my job, focus on the career that I'm in, you know. Something or the other would happen to me.
So you're trying to go somewhere, but a door closes,
A door
and then you're
closes.
like, okay, then you revert.
Well, exactly. I was just
Okay.
going to say, you know, if something, you know, for example, you know, in the household that I grew up in, I grew up in your typical Bollywood household. So,
Okay.
I have my mom, dad, my brother,
Okay.
then my uncle, my aunt,
Okay.
their 2 daughters, and my dad's parents. My grandpa and grandma and grandpa. Right?
So an extended family.
So an extended family
Okay.
system, right? Now there's
Bollywood
all this.
household.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this
Literally
Bollywood household?
is.
Yeah, I
Okay,
have.
I haven't even heard of this
I have.
Bollywood household. Okay.
So
All right.
when you're working with a family business, or I might be getting a bit off topic here,
It's
but
good.
when you're
It's
working with
fine.
a family business, there's a lot of expectations, But again, living in an extended family system, you've got everyone's income coming into one pot, right?
Okay.
Now, let's say if I wanted to go do something for myself, okay, I'm bringing in all this money, okay, financially, whether it's through my job or through my other activities,
Right.
okay, and I'm putting it in this pot now, and someone like my dad, who's the head of the household, is now dictating to me what I can and can't do with my money, right? Now, if I had a falling out with my dad, whether it's with something personal within the family or something to do with the business,
Right.
then, and I'm trying to live a certain, live a straight life, I would then resort or revert back, like you said, I would revert back to my old ways, right?
So, what I'm curious about something. You're contributing to a family household income, and you're probably contributing quite significantly based on how successful you are in what you were doing. Do you think that there was ever a wonder going, where are you getting this money from? Or do you think they knew, or how like you were very close to the family, so.
But you would have had to move your business from university back to with your family, so they're 2 different
Yeah,
areas of clientele.
I'm not clear on what's going on there. Like,
So
how does
I wouldn't.
how did you manage
I would
that?
never keep anything at home.
Yeah.
Never, because I've been in too many situations.
Well, it's in
'cause-
a Biggie Small song. It's one of the commandments, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You are awesome.
Big and small. I
by
gotta
the way.
learn.
Oh, you gotta take. Oh, you gotta take notes.
I have so much to learn from you guys.
I would
Products and
I would never
services.
keep anything that
Is that
would.
like financial planning 101?
You gotta listen to the
from
song.
Big and
He
Small?
rolls it all out for
Okay.
you. Yeah, all the rules.
I've been
Great.
in too many situations with specifically my dad where he's not dumb.
Yeah.
He's the part of Africa where he's from. East African, okay, Indian East African, and my dad actually used to tell me all the time and say to me, you know what, Muzammil, when I see you, I see a younger version of me. I've had too many run-ins with my dad, at a very younger age when I started doing whatever I was doing. At an early age. So I told myself I'm never keeping anything at home. Plus, I don't want to bring that sort of heat around my family or
Yeah.
anything like that. So, I'd always keep my other belongings at other places where I know it's safe and secure, and I know where that's all my cash and stuff like that is. So when I'm contributing to the house, I'm only contributing a certain amount. So I would maybe, let's say out of 100%, I
much.
might
You
take
thought-
like 5% out of it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
just contribute it. So it's because my parents would see me, especially my mom, she would be seeing me, spending, exuberant amounts of money,
Right.
like to a point where. Like she used to tell me that Muzammil, I'm a shoe fanatic, so she would tell me like, Muzammil, if I see you come into this house with another form of footwear, I don't care if it's a dollar store pair of flip-flops, like you're out. Like, you and your shoes are
Right.
out. So, and my mom's a smart lady. Like
Yeah.
she would see like my outfit. She always knew like when I start my outfit, it's gonna start with my shoes, right? So, I had to be very, very careful as to how I spent my
So
money.
you're measuring all this.
I have to measure it. It's not, and there was even a high that I would get out of that, because if I could outsmart authorities,
Right.
I could outsmart my parents, and my parents, they're not dumb people. Like they are
like the
aware-
authorities. I mean, I'm just asking, just the way you
it's,
said it. Right.
They're not dumb people.
So I want to go back to that, because you said earlier on, you said whenever I would have a downfall. So, and that, I would say, okay, Muzammil, it's time to, right, change things. What did you mean by a downfall? Because sometimes a downfall is not the downfall; it's the beginning of your rise, actually. So, but you took it as a downfall. And is it something as simple as like, it was like an authority, like there was there's something to do with an authority saying, hey, you're out of line? Or was it more internal, the downfall? That's what I'm curious about.
I would say it's a bit of both.
Okay.
Again, like I mentioned before, I live in an extended family system, so I have no choice but to be a part of the family business. I have no choice but to continue this sort of dynasty
Sure.
that's being built,
Right.
or has been built, let's say, for me, and is expected to pass on to me.
Right.
With that, there's a lot of financial constraints. Hence why I would, revert back to what I've always done, right, without being controlled in that way. It wasn't until I decided to leave my family business, to leave my family home, and even after doing that, I was still being distracted, from all this noise. I said to myself, okay, I've already left the house, I've left my family business. There's no one here to control me or tell me what I can and can't do with my money. And somehow, some way, I'm still finding myself back to doing what I'm doing.
Being owned,
and not being. I'm leaving, being owned by my family, and leaving the stresses and crap that comes with that. Now I'm reverting and being owned by the things that I used to do that will only get me really so far. At that time, I'm not thinking about that. But when I look back at it now, I honestly wish I could go about it another way. If somebody gave me a time machine today and gave me that opportunity, I would definitely take that opportunity. But you know what? It is what it is. Past is past. You can only move on forward, right? So
it starts dawning on you now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You start to think about it, and what really bothered me is.
How old were you around this time?
So around this time, again, this is as early as 5 years ago. This is, I'm taking you back as 2017.
Okay.
I'm 38 now.
Okay.
I was about, 32, 33 at the
Okay,
time.
so it's very recent.
It's very recent.
Okay.
Very recent. And the messed up part is when you revert back to that lifestyle, time and time again, especially when you're dealing with certain products or services, they're high pay. It's very high. It's a lot of money involved. But, when I was doing it, I was chasing all this money and I'm not getting paid, or I'm not collecting, or you know what I mean?
No. What do you mean?
When I say not collecting is, I would, let's say, front somebody something.
Okay.
Let somebody borrow something, for example.
Okay.
Okay. And, I would say them come back to me in about 2 weeks or at this time and,
Right.
Come collect and,
Right.
you go your way, I go my way, right? Even up until today, if I really wanted to, there's a lot of money out there for me to collect, but what am I going to do with it? What is it going to do for me? It's
Well, is that not part of the two-pack list of things to do, or no? Like, don't leave a receivable out there? No.
no, it's no, I know what you mean, but
It was Biggie, actually.
The biggie, is it? Okay, there we go.
let's just put it this way, Mohammed. When I look back at everything I accumulated for myself, what do I have really to show for it today? The only thing I can tell you, what I have to show for it today at this very moment is my shoe collection.
I already
I was going to start there.
The amount of cars I've had the opportunity to drive, the amount of clothes, the amount of jewelry, the amount of anything you could possibly think of.
Right.
I've seen it, I've done it, I've worn it, I've traveled it. But what do I have to show for it today? Really, And in doing all those things, I was damaging my credit. I was, damaging my reputation. So going back to my downfalls, I'm chasing all this small change and not getting paid for it, or not getting the results that I'm expecting. I'm just eluding myself to being the same old Muzammil, or people are looking at me being the same old Muzammil because they're seeing me. They're seeing me now that I've left my family home. I've left the family business. What am I doing about it? I'm asking, and at that time, I'm not asking myself, I'm not seeing myself doing what I really want to do. I'm just falling back. I would
Something
always
that was familiar.
exactly
Yeah.
right. You know, I'm
So
here-
the feeling of growth stopped happening.
Exactly. The feeling of growth stopped happening. I mean, I'm saying to myself that, okay, you know what? I want to get out of the stress of being with my family because they're just bringing way too much stress on me. There's too much trauma growing up, you know, in that household, you know? And not to say that I'm bad talking my family.
Right.
No, you know, they come from a generation where they were taught certain things or taught a certain way.
Right.
And what they were taught is being passed on to me. It's
Right.
it's generational knowledge.
And you're
right?
like, I want my own.
It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The thought and idea of continuing, you know, an extended family, you know, is great. But the actual reality of it happening in today's modern society, it's slim to none. I mean, it's
So you're
Like
not-
an extended family, like living within your family structure as it was.
Like the way I grew up, you
Yeah.
know, wanting to connect. It was always a dream, you know. But you know, with the traumas and triggers that I have from that, you know. I don't even want that for my own kid. You know, I don't. You know what I
If
mean?
you don't mind me asking, what would be like a trauma or a trigger from that experience that,
I mean,
from your perspective?
I mentioned it before. You know, there's so much pressure and expectation. You know, especially me being the eldest, you know, son, the firstborn in my family.
Okay. How many siblings did you have?
So I mentioned before, it's just me and my brother.
Okay.
And then I've
And then
got
you had two cousins in
my
the
two
house.
cousins, which I don't even look at as cousins. They're my
Yeah,
Right.
they're
sisters,
siblings, yeah.
siblings, right? So I've got all this pressure and expectation of on me, right? Now, because I didn't follow the rules, or you know, like my brothers and my two younger sisters,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my parents always used me as the example of saying, don't be like your brother Muzammil. Don't be that guy,
Oh.
because if you're gonna be him, you're gonna be like X. You're gonna be X, Y, and Z. So already I'm being painted in a very, you know, judgmental way.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, I brought that on for myself, and I hold accountability and responsibility
Right.
for
Mm-hmm.
that. But certain things that I required, let's say as a child, for example, and Mo, you know me from the soccer field. You know, I play very competitively. You know, so I live and die for soccer till this day. You know, my dad would always tell me, like, I would have injuries. I would get injured, but I would recover. But my dad would tell me all the time, like, do you get paid for what you play? I'm like, no. He'd ask me why. I'm like, why would I want to get paid? Like, I'm doing what I love, you know? And he would always downplay me on any of my dreams or goals and ambition. I'm just using soccer as an example. You know, when growing up, and I played soccer at a very, very high level, you know? I would see, you know, my teammates, you know, their parents would come watch them play, cheer them on. You know, they get hurt, you know, their mom or dad or somebody's there to pick them up and be like, you know, you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. You know, if I got injured, if I came first, I would not have anybody there. You know, I think my mom came to my games up until like I was maybe 12 or 13. After that, she was,
Sure.
you know, doing her own thing. But if I came home injured and I couldn't go to work the next day, or, you know, it wasn't a great conversation when I got
So just
at
really
the dinner
different
table. So it's just
values
different
and-
values.
yeah.
It's, you know, I guess you can say is I always wanted, you know, just somebody to tell me I love you, or somebody to put their arm around me and be like, you know, are you good? Do you want to talk? What can I do to help you? Right? Maybe life would have been different. Maybe I wouldn't have done what I've done in my past. You know, maybe life would have been a different way, right? But again, like I said, you know, I don't let my past, you know, define who I am, you know, or even as early as 5 years ago. It's what I'm doing today is what's going to make me a better person for tomorrow. Right?
That's
and then
amazing.
there's
That's
other
good.
things I'm doing too in my journey. You know, one of the biggest steps I've taken for myself in life is I've started doing therapy for myself. You know, and started about a year ago with one therapist. Wasn't the right fit. Not to say the therapist was
No,
bad.
but you have to shop around.
You have
to
to
find,
shop
you
around.
do.
You
Yeah.
know, I did a little bit. I got off with that particular therapist, and then I found myself, you know, I don't want to say reverting to old lifestyle, but you know, there's habits from that old lifestyle. Like I'll be quite vulnerable with you about something. You know, when you're living that lifestyle, you know, whether you're dealing with authorities or family or friends or whatever, you're not being true. You're not. There's a lie. okay? Whether it be telling a blatant lie or not being forthcoming about something. So I've always had this problem of being a liar, you know, whether that, again,
Through omission,
whether
or-
it be through
yeah.
omission or just blatantly telling you that
Oh, this is
this
purple.
book is purple, but it's actually green. And I'm actually defending
Yeah.
my evidence
And you're doing
that
it
this is
willfully,
purple. And I'm doing
knowingly
it, not even
at that
knowingly,
point.
to the
Oh,
point where
okay.
like I'm actually believing my lie. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's deep within my core, right?
Did it
So-
happen? Because I've seen this with family members of mine as well, where and you call it out. They just will lie sometimes over ridiculous things that have no consequence to
It's
anything
funny you say that.
whatsoever.
It's funny you say that.
Oh,
because,
yeah.
It's funny you say that because I would lie or not be forthcoming on some of the most simplest of
Yeah.
things. It's like, you know, this
I
time
don't
last-
understand.
Like here, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
It comes from sometimes from being really criticized, at least from the people I've spoken with. Like this is not a clinical
It's funny you say
thing,
that
it's
because my
like-
therapist, you know, mentioned the same thing to me.
Yeah.
There's this fear of being criticized. There's this fear of being judged. There's this fear of if you tell the truth, you're just going to get lashed at.
Right, so I'm not going to be vulnerable, so I'm going to lie. So then you can get
Exactly.
mad at the lie, and then I don't perceive that as a rejection of self.
Exactly. Like, oh, look, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Like, my wife will.
Because I'm looking at this thinking, is it actually purple now? No, it's just,
Convince you.
No,
You're a good liar,
for
man.
sure.
It's
Like,
just-
like, let's put it this way. Like, my wife will come into a room and she saw this cup right here. Okay. Now, let's say she leaves the room and I, for some odd reason, move it. Okay.
Right.
She'll ask me, "Did you move it?"
Right.
I'll be like,
No.
"No," and she'll be like, "Muzammil, this cup was right here.
Right.
You're the only person in this room. You're right by the sink. Why would you like? You
Right.
know what I mean?" I'm like, "No, babe, I did not do this." And then it would just become a snowball effect. I'm
Right.
now like, I've now said this lie. Now I got
Now
to
you
keep
gotta-
this lie going.
Right.
I got to
You
make
gotta
sure.
double down.
I got to
This is
double
it.
down. It's
This
I'm
is
playing.
it.
I'm playing blackjack constantly, all the
Yeah.
time, right? To the point where you know it ends up. You end up believing your lies, right? So
Yeah.
you know that's one of the core things in me, which I don't want to say I used to be ashamed about, but you know
But it served a purpose.
it served
for
a
you.
purpose for me.
Yeah.
It served a purpose for me, you know. But you know, when I look back at it now, it's you know for the work that I'm doing in therapy right now to better myself, you know, it's I see the results that are coming out of it. Mind you, you know, I've only restarted my therapy journey, you know, last year, October, November.
But Muzammil, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Because you jumped right to the therapy. I want to ask you something else
Sure.
before that. It had to have started before that point where you start saying something's not right, something doesn't feel right. And usually the first time that starts happening, there's a denial. No, everything's fine, I'll get through it. And then, you know, it goes on. And then at some point in time, you make the decision, and going for therapy for guys like us from our, say, communities or the background that we might come up with, and tough soccer player, you know, I'm a celebrity here, you know, that kind of stuff. You calculate and you say, oh my God, how's this going to look? And then we don't make the move. We don't go for it. Did you ever have that? Did you go through that, and what was that like for you?
You know,
Or was it just like, no, I need this, I'm going?
no, it was exactly what you said. It was I need this, I'm going. You know, but you know, I always the thought of going for therapy or
Yeah.
talking to someone, you know, it was very nerve wracking. You know, look, I give an example.
Why was it nerve-wracking? What about it was so...
Just being like look, this comes from actually one of my traumas where with, let's say, especially with my dad, you know, where I would, if something was bothering me, if I got affected in some shape, way, or form, and I went to my dad randomly and be like, Dad, you know, this is bothering me, I'm feeling like this, you know, the usual answer I would get from my dad is, this is all in your head, have a glass of water, you'll be fine, okay? Or it will be like, Muzammil, you're crazy, stop this nonsense, sort of thing. So, you know, wanting to be able to, or having this, I ended up developing this need to want to be heard, to want to talk to want
Okay.
to get my feelings out. But then because I've gone through that trauma with my dad, where I can't even talk about what's happening inside me, I'm being frowned upon for it, you know, or even forget even being frowned upon, the fact that there's not even somebody there to listen, let alone give me any sort of advice, you know, and you would expect that from a father. You know, having to want to talk, if I'm not getting that from my own family or my own, you know, people that are closest to me, how am I going to get this? How am I going to get that from somebody who doesn't know me from Tom, Dick, or Harry, sort of thing, right? So it was a bit nerve-wracking. I wanted to do it because, you know what, there's all these feelings and emotions that have been building up over and over the years, to the point where, you know, now those emotions and feelings are starting to pour, and I don't have an outlet. I don't have any way to channel those emotions or receive those emotions and, you know, distribute it, you know. I think I was mentioning to you earlier before that, you know, my last 3 or 4 sessions have been so heavy that, you know, even right now, even in this conversation I'm having with you, I'm having an internal battle with myself inside. You know, I discovered the other day in one of my therapy sessions that, you know, there's 3 people inside me. There's child Muzammil, there's rebellious Muzammil, and then there's adult Muzammil. Okay? And right now, you know, my last session I just had, I'm very angry at rebellious Muzammil, right? Rebellious Muzammil, you know, was the one that protected child Muzammil.
Right.
You know? Rebellious Muzammil is the one that, you know, got me into hustling and got me into this, and, you know, but what has rebellious Muzammil really done for me? What value, you know what I mean? So I'm having these internal battles within myself, even up right now.
Well, they served a purpose,
but they all
right?
serve a purpose. They all serve a purpose.
What's amazing is that, Muzammil, you're aware of this now.
Yeah.
See, the whole thing is for a lot of people, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, is a lot of people get stuck at rebellious whatever version of themselves that they're in. And there's this feeling of entrapment. You felt it, that there was this need that you're trapped, but you better get it out somehow.
Exactly.
You searched for outlets. A lot of times I would imagine that people who are in that position, you know, can't find the outlet, or really just convince themselves like, you're crazy, stop this. And they don't go forward. There's no progress made to get to this level that you're at.
Yeah.
And I just want to, for their sake, really, you know, be able to help them through your expression, how to get out from that point.
It's not an easy thing. There's no real way to get to that point. There's no really guide or manual or anything that I can say to anyone to do that.
But what did you do?
Well, look, I'll take you back a bit into our conversation. You know, from my downfalls, you know, realizing that I'm getting all this short change and I'm not getting paid and this and that, you know, I had to you know, before even getting to therapy, I still had to go through a process, right? I had to, you know, to be able to get to the point that I'm at today, I had to go, you know, realize, okay, identify what my downfall is. You know, I have to, you know.
And what did you identify as your downfall?
Well, I identified as my downfall, again, like I said, you know, I'm got all this distraction. I'm not really focusing on what I really want, you know. And it wasn't until my girlfriend, now wife, you know, and I have to say this, I have to get this out. You know, my wife and child are, you know, are a big part of, you know, where I am today.
Your development.
My development.
For
you know,
sure.
I could say,
there
confident,
you go.
I'm proud to say that my wife and kid are the ones that saved me.
Right.
You know, it's usually supposed to be the other way around, or traditionally, it's supposed to be the other way around. But my wife and kids saved me.
No, our kids are huge wake-up calls, or
for sure.
partners are huge wake-up calls.
You know, my wife had a heart-to-heart with me, and this was after I got laid off. I kind of reverted to some of my old ways, and this is where I was chasing, you know, a measly $500 from someone that owes me money, or whether it be $1,000 or whatever it is, right? And I'm not getting the results. And she's like, look, you know, you need to open up your eyes. You need to see what I see in you. When she said that to me, you know, I've never had anybody tell me that, Muzammil, you've got potential. You can actually be someone. You can actually do something, you know? So it wasn't until then I said to myself, I'm like, here I've got somebody that wants to build a life with me, okay? Now, mind you, you know, when I met my girlfriend then, my wife now, you know, she already had a child. So I'm going into this part of my life with someone who is already established, someone who is already built a life and is still continuing to build a life, and her main purpose is because she's got little eyes looking up to her. Now, that's what I want. I've always wanted that. I never thought I could have that, but I always wanted to have that, right? So when my wife had this heart-to-heart, with me.
Wanted specifically what? To have the family, or to have somebody?
Just not just the family, just that lifestyle. To have a home, build a future, build something. Kind of similarly to what our families did when they migrated here from East Africa or India or wherever they've come from.
Half an hour ago, you were talking about the life you wanted was some celebrity.
Exactly.
Now you've shifted in half an hour of talking to you. The life you actually want is. So you see that, you've tasted that, and you realize this is more valuable.
Exactly.
To you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's real.
Exactly.
So
this
that's
is real.
the-
It's something
Okay.
that you can actually hold on to.
And
right?
these people
It's
are telling you
connection.
you're
It's-
capable
yeah.
of something now.
Yeah. So when I have my wife telling
Got
me
it.
this,
Now I understand.
it really hit me. I had to have a really hard look at myself, which
Yes.
I never wanted to. I was always afraid to look at myself
Right.
and give myself a hard look in the mirror and be like, Muzammil, you got to change yourself. You've got somebody that actually wants to be something with you, when really right now at this very moment you're nothing. No matter how feared you are out there, or no matter how much Jordans or pairs of Gucci shoes or cars I've had, it doesn't mean nothing. And it's not that I never knew that. It's just, again,
But to hear it.
to hear it,
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing, right? So now that I've heard this, now that I've looked at myself in the mirror, I'm like, okay, you know what? This is going to be the start of my journey, And at that time, again, this is like
It's like 5 years ago.
this is
4
just
years.
4 or 5 years ago. It was
Okay.
end of 2017, going into 2018, and going into and progressing into 2019. At that time, my credit was atrocious. Atrocious is an understatement. Because of the things I used to do.
So you're looking at this like now you've got this motivation, you've got this belief, but you're still aware that there's this huge mountain to climb.
I've got a huge mountain to climb. Look, to build your credit, especially in today's climate that we're in, it's not easy. I'm still building my credit, but fortunately enough, I buckled down. I focused on my career. At that time I got picked up by a great company.
What are the things you did to focus?
Like, I'll give you an example. I've got one of my, used to be a best friend. Okay, used to be. But this is somebody I grew up with from day one. Okay, we went through the same thing. Today, he's still doing the same thing. He's still sitting in his garage. He's still, up all hours of the night. I'm tired of it. I don't want that.
It just doesn't align for you.
It just doesn't
anymore.
align for me. So, I still remember, I took a weekend, I took a whole 48 hours, sat on my phone,
Right.
and delete.
Okay. That's significant,
It's
man.
like I'm sitting there in tears, like having to delete contacts off my phone, or having to, get off certain social media platforms, or it's just, if there's a way to contact me, I went even to the extent of even changing my number. I mean, I grew up with a 416 and a 647 mobile number.
Yeah.
What the hell? I have a 437 number now. What the hell is that? Like, when I tell people I have a 437 number, they're
There
just
goes your
like,
celebrity status.
Yeah.
exactly.
Are you kidding me?
Exactly, right?
Right.
So it's but you know what?
Is it worth it?
Worth it is an understatement.
Okay.
I'm let's just put it this way. The one of the first things I noticed after I started making my change and on this path and journey is I could walk outside my house and not have to worry about who's watching me. Or I don't have to worry about having a target on my back.
Yeah.
And the thing is
What a
that if
relief.
I continue to do what I was doing with my wife now and kid in my life, I'm not only putting myself in danger, I'm putting two other people at danger who have nothing to do with what I've done in my past. So I don't want to be that guy. I couldn't take that responsibility. I can deal with me, being affected, but I can't even imagine to begin to think of how that would make me feel if, God forbid, knock on wood, something happened to my wife and kid. But
So that's your motivation.
That's my
your
motivation.
driver. You find your motivation. You find your driver. You detach. You attach. And then you start going to work.
Then I start going to work. You know,
Now you can focus.
I'm focused on I'm very career focused up until now. You know, I'm very hungry. I'm good at what I do. You know, and honestly, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, the sky's the limit. There's more for me out there, and you know, though I went through what I went through, I've always said to myself, you know, if there's something I want, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna have nobody stop me getting from what I want. You know.
So, something you said, you know, like being able to walk into the club and being able to be that guy who everybody had eyes on. You don't miss any of that?
You know, I used to before.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny. My wife was having this conversation with me, you know, a couple weeks ago.
Because now, like you're like
just randomly,
like you're like the sucker now, aren't you? To that guy.
To be honest with you, you know what?
Or are you a sucker? Or who is the sucker?
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
you know what? Sometimes in life, you know, if you want something great, you just gotta wait for it and be patient. You know. And when I look back at the people that I used to make fun of for that, I'm thinking to myself now, like, do I feel like a loser? You know, I'm looking at myself, not in a bad way, but, you know, I'm saying to myself, you know what, I used to laugh at people like that are waiting in line or doing the 9 to 5 or doing, you know, doing all this hard
honest work?
The honest work,
Right,
you know?
okay.
But now that I'm in it,
Right.
you know, and, you know, regardless of how well I'm doing at work, you know, we all go through financial struggles. We all go through, especially in today's climate that we're in with this pandemic
Sure.
and whatnot, you know. When I look at the problems that I have today
Right.
versus the problems that I had back then,
Right.
I'm so grateful for these problems that I'm having today because, again, you know, I'm not stressed about who's coming after me. I'm not worried about, am I going to make it through today to be able to make it through to be able to get to the next day to do what I need to do. You know what I mean? These are problems that I'm not saying I enjoy having, but are manageable. Now I'm starting to discover other things about me and things that I'm going through with my wife. You know, there's still little bits from my past, you know, like I was mentioning earlier before, you know, one of my core things that's a huge problem for me and, you know, for the people that are surrounded with me that I love is, you know, is the lying. So now I'm starting to discover therapy, right? So, even though my first therapist didn't work out, as I mentioned earlier, you know, there was something that he actually, you know, made aware for me that I always thought was a huge deficit for me. So growing up, you know, I've always had ADHD or ADD, whatever you want to call it, okay? And I always thought that my ADHD or ADD was a deficit. It was, you know...
Well, it has it right in the label.
Right? Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
But he actually made me aware that just because you're ADHD or ADD, it's not a bad thing.
No.
It's actually a great thing.
Right.
Because the way you look at, let's say, this book, right? I'm looking at it from a whole different lens. But one of the things that really has stuck to me, and what's really helping me through my journey is, you know, and this is what my therapist said, and it struck a huge chord in me. You know, he told me, Muzammil, you have to, in order to get to where you want to be, you have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And out of everything I've been through, I would say that's probably the most hardest thing I've had to deal with.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we want to be comfortable.
We want to be comfortable, but
who doesn't
That's
want to
where
be?
growth happens,
Exactly.
Like, think of a seed trying to push up all the earth, right? Like, that's uncomfortable and buried down.
Yeah.
But that's literally what it is, right?
You know,
So now,
Yeah.
before uncomfortable would make you revert. Now uncomfortable makes you look forward to it. Is that how it feels for you right now?
That's exactly how it feels.
You're succeeding because you're doing the work. Though.
Exactly.
You're already
That's
in
actually
success.
success if you
That
ask
is
me.
actual success.
That is success.
Thank you.
It's not some place.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's
a
not
journey.
it's not a destination.
I mean, I still have a way.
It's an attitude.
Exactly. I still have a way to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it sounds like what you're doing is internal family systems.
Exactly.
That's what it sounds like you're doing.
Exactly.
So when he's speaking to the different parts of him, it's not different personalities. It's just different when we develop adaptive skills to get through a trauma or to get through a crisis. So he is the rebellious version of himself. That was the protector, the one, or deflected when you were uncomfortable. So that was, we all have these different parts and versions of ourselves that had like adaptive functions in a traumatic situation. But those parts of us become maladaptive later in life, such as, you know, you were rebellious, so you learned to lie. So that's maladaptive in an intimate relationship with your wife, obviously. But it served all these parts of us served a purpose, and so it's looking at them. And so, like, I always look at it, therapy as kind of a spiral, like for myself as well, because you circle around things and you dig at them, but then you come back at it and then you get more depth and understanding into that part of yourself and why you do those things.
So that's what I'm currently going through in my last couple of sessions that, you know, let's say 3 sessions ago, I discovered that there's this internal family system, right? And, you know, I'm discovering something, you know, about each family member in my system. Now, right now, all I'm seeing right now is the negative in it. You know, I'm not seeing the positive in it, which I'm sure at some point I will.
Yes.
You know, as I go furthermore in my sessions, right? It's just, you know, when my therapist is talking to me, he's telling me, look, you know, don't focus on the negative. And like you just said, each part of me or each person of, you know, of me in that internal family system served a purpose. You know, so as negative as you feel about it, you know, they served you right for something. You know, whether it's child Muzammil or rebellious Muzammil or adult Muzammil, they all served or are still serving some form of purpose.
I gotta say something to you though. I've known you for years, okay? I never seen you smile the way you smile nowadays.
Really?
Yes, 100%. I gotta say, man, that's just like, it's great to see. And when you talk about how, could you focus on this a little bit as like a last word, but, or close to, you talk about how tough it is. But then you also talk about when I see what I have to look forward to. What is it that you look forward to? What is that? Describe that.
You know what? It's not easy to describe.
Okay.
You know,
Whether it's a feeling or whatever.
What I look forward to is, I mentioned it earlier before, you know, my wife and kids saved me, you know. And my biggest motivation is that, just like my wife, I've got little eyes looking up to me too. So what I see what the end goal is that if I can provide for not just my wife, you know, because that's a given, but if I can provide my kid, you know, the tools and resources for her to be a good human being, for her to live a good life, for me, that's the goal. That's the end result. And anything I can do to, you know, protect her, guide her, show her that, you know, let her know that, look, you know, you can go through anything in life, whether it's good or bad. It's up to you to want more and up to you to want to be a good human being, not just for the people that are around you, like me, your mom, you know, your grandma, grandpa, but for yourself.
And how does going through therapy get you there?
You know what? It's about just being vulnerable, you know, being vulnerable to the people that are around you, being vulnerable to yourself, being true to yourself, you know. I can confidently say to myself today that, you know what, I'm happy and content with the Muzammil today that I'm seeing in the mirror, or people that are seeing me, like yourself and Trina, you know, versus the Muzammil that you used to see with the cloud over his.
Well, you know, there was always like, you know, the tough guys, right, would look at it and say like, oh, man, you're just being weak. Now who's tougher now? You know, was that guy tougher or is this guy stronger? Who's been through more? Who's gotten up and gotten back at it? I certainly have an opinion as to who the tougher one is now, right? Yeah. But, you know, all the things that you've wanted, that you've aspired to be and to want to do, you've done.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the greatest things that you guys are doing with this is that, you know, you're getting people aware. You're helping people through other people's stories, you know. If and what I'm getting out of this is that, you know, is to let everybody know that, you know, you can be going through whatever it is that you're going on in life. It's, you know, you just got to make sure that, you know, you're happy with yourself. You have some sort of plan. If you need to speak up, speak up. If you need to, you know, be vulnerable, be vulnerable. You know, there's Don't have that fear that someone is going to be judging. Don't have that fear that someone is going to take your past and judge you based on that for the rest of your life. I used to have that fear myself, but now when I tell people my story, you know, I feel like I'm letting go of my past. You know, the more I speak about it, you know, even right now, you know, I feel like I've let go of things. You know, plus it's giving me an opportunity as well to let people know that, you know, this is not the Muzammil that you guys have seen grown up. I'm not that person anymore. You know, this is an opportunity for me to clean my slate, to let everybody know that, you know what, I've done work on myself, you know. Now it's up to you it's on you now to take it how you want. I've already said my piece. I've already done the work. I am still doing the work. It's up to you now to, you know, how you want that to sit with you.
Beautiful, man. And you've got all the motivation in the world to do it, and you got a beautiful family there.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to hear the future versions, right, of what's going to be out there.
Definitely.